Those of you who watch my channel know that I revealed in detail through scriptures the identity of Mystery Babylon being Jerusalem, her ancient monarchy, and her ancient people played the scarlet harlot against God. And they were under punishment numerous times. Their temples were destroyed because God allowed the enemy to come in and destroy it because they were worshiping pagan gods and doing all kinds of things that displeased God. So for the last 2,000 years, they've been under this punishment of the diaspora. So when they go back to Israel, they're not in a believing in Jesus type of state. And they went to Babylon as punishment. So there's a 7-year week left for the time of Jacob's trouble, because they become Mystery Babylon in the end. And in Revelation 18:13, I wanted you to consider this scripture where it talks about and cinnamon and incense, fragrant oil and frankincense, wine and oil, and fine flour and wheat, and beasts and sheep and horses, and chariots and slaves and souls of men. Some versions say, and human lives. I was reminded of the fact that, these JFK assassination files were just released, and there is some evidence that suggests that JFK insisted that the Zionist community of Israel register as a foreign agent. JFK sought Israel nuclear site inspection in 1963, and they refused. And on November 22nd, 1963, JFK was assassinated shortly thereafter, because Ben-Gurion, the founder of the State of Israel, the first president of Israel, stepped down because of the actions of JFK. So this person is Bonetta Elliott, and did this research and said, after watching the interview with Tucker Carlson, I found myself revisiting the research I've gathered on the assassination of John F. Kennedy. There's too much to fit in a post, so I'm putting it here in this article. Below, I've included links to the documentation and facts I've amassed over the years, offering a detailed look into some of the official reports and declassified documents surrounding JFK's assassination. Tucker Carlson interview makes interesting and facts about the JFK assassination and the Israeli nuclear program. Now, this person has all of the documentation showing these are facts, and that there was arguments between JFK and the leaders of Israel. JFK wanted to stop Israel's nuclear program and register Israel's lobby as a foreign agent. At the time of the events discussed, Israel was a relatively young nation, having existed for only 13 years. The country was still in the process of evolving, navigating its place in the international community amidst ongoing regional tensions. During this period, the Kennedy administration was focused on fostering good relations with both Israel and the Arab nations, aiming for a balanced approach in the Middle East volatile political landscape. You guys, can you believe that little pieces of snow are coming down? I'm not kidding. That is so strange. The sun is shining, and there's little white flecks coming down, just ever so gently. So anyway, John F. Kennedy, who had more international experience than many U.S. presidents, brought a unique perspective to the situation. In 1939, he spent 2 weeks in Palestine, an experience that significantly influenced his views on the region. And in a detailed letter to his father, Kennedy shared his observations from this visit, and he noted that the local sentiment seemed to favor the Arabs, attributing this not only to the unfortunate arrogance and uncompromising attitude of some Jewish leaders, but also to the historical context that Palestine had been predominantly Arabic for a couple of hundred years. Well, that's because they were invaders. It was ruled by the Ottoman Empire. They were invaders, so they were not the original people of the land. Kennedy expressed skepticism about Britain's authority to decide the fate of Palestine, questioning the legitimacy of such territorial decisions. His insights reflect a nuanced understanding at the complexities surrounding the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And they have a link to the letter JFK Library, letter written to his father following his trip to Palestine in 1939. Kennedy remarks how the Jewish residents are divided between strongly Orthodox Jewish group unwilling to make any compromise and a liberal Jewish element composed of the younger group who fear these reactionaries. And he said the U.S. should act promptly and decisively against any nation in the Middle East which attacks its neighbor. And the Middle East needs water, not war, tractors, not tanks, bread, not bombs. Here's the timeline, 1962 to 1963. JFK and RFK demanded American Zionist Council, the AZC, register as foreign agents. 1963, JFK demanded inspection of Israel's Dimona nuclear facility, and Israel refused. And then on November 22nd of that year, 1963, JFK was assassinated. June 6, 1968, Robert F. Kennedy was running for President of the United States, and he was assassinated June 6th of 1968. 1. Kennedy tried to stop the Israeli nuclear weapons program. There was a battle of the letters. There were many letters exchanged regarding Israel's nuclear ambitions. And there are some links and summary descriptions to some of the letters. And there were more letters, but they focused on June 15th of 1962 and on June 15th of 1963. Description: replying to Ben-Gurion's letter of May 27th, Kennedy respectfully but firmly insisted on the need to create a system of regular biannual U.S. visits to Dimona, like the previous letter, and this one included the same ultimatum-like warning. Washington's commitment to and support of Israel could be seriously jeopardized if it should be thought that we are unable to obtain reliable information on a subject as vital as Israel's intentions in the nuclear field, and for this reason the letter insisted on a schedule along the lines suggested by the State Department, and that is the first visit during that summer before the reactor turned critical, then the next summer, June of 1964, and after that at intervals of 6 months. National Security Archive, State Department Telegram 938 to U.S. Embassy, Israel, June 15, 1963, secret. June 16, 1963. As Kennedy's letter arrived in Tel Aviv on the 16th of June, Prime Minister Ben-Gurion resigned. He cited unspecified personal reasons, although the CIA believed that his conciliatory policy towards West Germany was a cause. Ambassador Barber recommended that once a new Israeli government had formed, the U.S. démarche be sent in a redacted form. I don't know if that's démarche or démarche. But he further observed that the Dimona inspection was a controversial issue when Ben-Gurion presented it to the cabinet in late May. Then there was an Embassy Israel telegram 1043 to State Department June 16th of 1963 that was secret. And in the meantime, there was a new prime minister because Ben-Gurion stepped down because of these things with JFK. After about 7 weeks of highly intense consultations, Eshkol finally handed to Ambassador Barber his reply to Kennedy's letter of early July. Eshkol agreed to a Dimona visit in late 1963 before the reactor reached criticality and suggested that a follow-up visit in mid-1964 could be discussed. Eshkol acknowledged Kennedy's request for biannual visits to Dimona, but without making any commitment apart from a general expression of confidence that agreement on a future schedule could be reached. Noting Kennedy's concern about the reactor's fuel cycle, Eshkol stated that the reactor fuel was French and is fully controlled by the French government, to whom it has been returned after irradiation. Barber later commented that Eshkol has not had an easy time in obtaining agreement of his colleagues to the line taken in this letter, which represents a major effort on his part to meet U.S. anxieties on this important problem. Discussing the issue further, Eshkol said that his mind was not yet made up, but for the time being, he asked that Nasser of Egypt not be told about the future U.S. visits to Dimona. It was better that he not be completely assured that Israel is not working towards nuclear weapons production. Now, of course, we know that Israel went to war, Nasser went to war with Israel. Ambassador Barber cautioned the Prime Minister of the danger that Nasser might conclude that Israel was getting the bomb, that it was necessary for the UAR to make a preemptive attack, lest Israel strike first. In a memo to Kennedy, Under Secretary of State George Ball observed that Eshkol had not agreed to the summer 1963 visit that Kennedy had requested, and did not consent to semi-annual visits beginning in 1964. In effect, Ball suggested that Kennedy reply as if Eshkol had made those concessions, a suggestion that Comer endorsed. That Eshkol objected to U.S. briefings to the UAR about the inspections was a serious problem because of the deterrent effect that the information would have, for example, by assuming Nasser about Israeli capabilities. And then there was a National Security Archive, U.S. Embassy, Israel telegram 204 to the State Department, August 19th of 1963, which was also secret. August 26th of 1964, description, Kennedy's appreciative reply, which he personally approved to Eshkol, did not mention the divergencies over the timing and frequency of the Dimona visits, but assumed that there was a basic agreement on regular visits. In the instructions, Barber was asked to tell Eshkol that seeing as he had not made up his mind over whether Nasser would be informed of the U.S. visits, that Kennedy believed that there are real advantages for security in setting to rest any fears which might otherwise lead to nuclear weapons acquisitions efforts by others in the area. Now I'm going to skip the next page just to save some time on here, but it says, on the crucial issue of Dimona inspection, the Israelis ignored JFK's condition and the reactor went critical on December 26th. When the inspection occurred 3 weeks later, they could not inspect the areas that had been irradiated. And it was later discovered that the Hebrew website of the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission marks July 1963, 6 months earlier. Harry S. Traynor, Atomic Energy Commission representative to U.S. Intelligence Board, report on U.S. inspection team visit to Dimona, Israel, dated January 30th of 1964. And it says, this report, produced and kept within intelligence channels, provided highlights of the U.S. inspection visit that took place on the 18th of January 1964, and the first such visit since the fall of 1962, and it was a consequence of the pressure Kennedy had applied. And as the AEC had preferred, the inspectors did not have the AEC safeguards backgrounds. Instead, experience in reactor development and arms control, both the U.S. and Israelis kept the fact of the visit highly secret, and no leaks to the press appeared. The findings raised no suspicions of weapons work, but it was the impression of the team that the Dimona site and the equipment located there represented an ambitious project for a country of Israel's capabilities. A key development, according to the Israelis, was that the reactor had gone critical on December 26th of 1963, only a few weeks earlier. Declassified letter. President Kennedy was concerned about the arms escalation in the region, especially So I'm going to stop right there. And it's also a well-known fact that Jack Ruby, his real name was Rubenstein. So there were connections to all of these people. And because Kennedy was writing these controversial letters back and forth, there's a lot of connection that they may have been behind the assassination of our president. And it's a horrendous thing involving the CIA, which is highly
surprising series of letters between Kennedy and David Ben-Gurion, not only the premier of Israel, but the founder of Israel, in which they're very angry letters, in which Kennedy is saying to Ben-Gurion, I'm killing myself trying to get a nuclear test ban treaty. I've even got de Gaulle on board, and that's impossible. And you keep testing in Dimona. You've got to stop. And Ben-Gurion, thank you, in so many words says, it's easy for you to say sitting in Hyannisport. I'm sitting with the Arabs all around me, and you want me to give up nuclear testing. And Kennedy threatens him. And he threatens him in such a way that Ben-Gurion resigned. And I will tell you, I found articles, not in any crackpot publication, but in very sophisticated publications saying, forget Lyndon Johnson, forget the CIA, forget Fidel Castro. The Mossad killed Kennedy because they were so upset over what he did to Ben-Gurion. So, you know, we got a few little bombshells we throw in there, not proven.
Yeah, I hear you.
Bitches lie to me constantly about their nuclear capability. The Jewish community invites JFK to come to Dallas, which was sponsored by the Dallas Citizens Council, which was directed by Julius Sheps, who was a member of the local B'nai B'rith organization, the ADL B'nai B'rith, once again. A confirmed member of the local B'nai B'rith as well, Abraham Zapruder, was also just so happened to be the guy that caught the assassination on film. Zapruder was also a manufacturer headquartered in the Dallas Textiles building. According to ballistic studies, it was from that building the first two shots were fired and missed. The building was owned by David Weisblatt, one of the biggest financiers of the Anti-Defamation League, and Douglas Jaff, one of the biggest donors to Lyndon B. Johnson. The host committee that invited Kennedy to the event in Dallas was chaired by a guy named Sam Bloom. According to Dallas police, it was Bloom who pushed the hardest for the police to transfer Lee Harvey Oswald from the Dallas police station to the Dallas County Jail. Now, it was during that transfer that Jack Ruby shot Oswald. What was Jack Ruby's real last name? Jakob Rubenstein. The reactor went critical right after Kennedy died, and they got the bomb a year or two later. That's kind of a coincidence, isn't it? It's kind of a strange coincidence. Kennedy dies, Israel gets the bomb. Gets the bomb.